college campuses are doing a lot of innovative things, incorporating a lot of virtual care, contracting with companies to expand what they can offer on campus because the demand is just so high. And so for a lot of students, they may have been anywhere from late middle school to early high school during the pandemic, a time where they were at home, they were isolated, they weren't with their peers, and a lot of students were depressed during that time. Now, there's an exception for students who have anxiety and social anxiety.
You are tuned in to the Money Script Podcast. Today, we will share strategies to help you grow your financial literacy and improve your money script. I'll be back with some important announcements. Until then, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Money Script Podcast. It's your host, Johan Harrison. So happy to be with each and every one of you today. We did have to take a little break for the summer, did a little traveling. What did I do? Well, I graduated. I think I told you about that. Graduated. We went to LA, had some fun there. I went somewhere else and my mind is escaping me. I am headed to the Carolina Panthers training camp this weekend. So that'll be exciting. So depending on when you're listening to this, maybe Carolina's already, 0-5 or something. It's tough to be a Carolina fan. There was an article out that mentioned how the Carolina Panthers fans are the most injured, the most depressed. I think the word. I don't think they use depressed, but anyways, we want to win. It just hasn't happened yet. So again, Johan Harrison, the Money Script Podcast. I am a financial advisor. My role is to help you bring better alignment between your goals, your values, and your financial behaviors. I know that I can't serve everyone in this world, or at least in the United States, or even in the state of Texas or California, or even in the city. I can't. It's just one of me. So this podcast is to give you some tidbits to help you get some insight to the industry. I interview a lot of other financial advisors, really, so that you don't have to. Well, I mean, you still do, but it lets you meet other financial advisors so you can learn about their philosophies, learn more about how we help our clients, how we're helping the world one day, one client, $1 at a time, just make better financial decisions for themselves. Because let's face it, it's if we look at the economy as a whole and what's going on with finances, and let's just talk about the United States, the wealth gap is broadening, widening, if you will, and the middle class is shrinking. And that is because the folks that have more, and the people that have less, unfortunately, have less. And in some situations, they have the same amount of money. It's just their money doesn't go as far as it used to. So if there's anything that I can do to help you improve how you think about your money, your relationship with money, your money script, which is your mindset around money and how you were brought up, then I hope it's helpful to, again, help you get a little bit closer to those dreams and goals that are so important to you. So on today's podcast, I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Bianca Busch. We are going to be talking about psychiatry and psychology. She's a psychiatrist. And this one is geared more to our college students. So I know you're out there listening, college students, and of course to the parents of college students. So we're going to bring her in on the show, and just know that I am booked solid for these podcasts coming up. We've got some really exciting guests coming soon. I have Daniel Crosby. Yes, the author that I thank you, Daniel, for scheduling podcasts. There's a few others. I don't want to leave anyone out, but I'd be going on forever if I told everyone. And just Daniel, his book was right here, and I wanted to tell you all that I have an interview scheduled with him, and I can't wait. So with that, let's hop into our show. Let's bring in Dr. Bianca Busch. Dr. Busch, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed. And see, now I brought you in. Now I got to shift it. See, this is YouTube. YouTube makes it so that I have to worry about stuff like this. Here, boom. There we go. We're going to go just like that. Now it looks like I'm kind of looking at you.
Yes.
That works. So welcome to the Money Script Podcast. How are you today?
So good. So good. Again, glad to be here. And I'm grateful for the work that you do. It's really, really important. So, yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for the work that you do, and I wish I had known you when my son was in college. So, Dr. Busch, you are the college psychiatrist. Did I get that right?
Yes. I'm founder and CEO of the College Psychiatrist. We are a growing group practice serving college students across the country, licensed in 12 states now.
Okay. You got me
Yeah,
deep.
so
I think I'm in 8 right now. I think
okay.
I'm trying to catch up.
Well, come on. But I find that's really helpful because as students go to school, they often lose care with their therapist or psychiatrist because of state licensing. And so we prescribe medications, we provide therapy, we also support parents. Sometimes parents need help in
Yes.
dealing with what's going on with their students. And so because I'm an adult child and adolescent psychiatrist, I'm used to working with families, and I'm happy to support parents along the journey too.
So, out of curiosity, how did you arrive at college psychiatry? I mean, what made you determine that was your target group to focus on?
I started my practice in 2020 while I was a fellow, actually, second year fellow in child and adolescent psychiatry. And I started just seeing adults. And then as I continued on in the practice, I noticed I was seeing more college students. And because I have licenses in multiple states, I could serve them well. And it's fun. It's fun to be with young people as they're in college and they're growing. And so, I found like, okay, this is a group I like to see. They're available during the day when I'm available. And then again, as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, sometimes adult psychiatrists are like, okay, the patient is 18, not going to talk to the parents. They're on their own. But I kind of have a different approach. In a developmentally appropriate way, I engage parents in the care. And so, that's not very easy to navigate, but we do it all the time as child and adolescent psychiatrists. So requires like making sure we keep things confidential for the student, but then also advising the parent on sort of what to do. So it's like a unique skill set, unique licensing situation, and it's fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, yes, working with youth is fun. I share that passion with you. I provide financial literacy to college students. So if you are a college and you are listening, if you're a professor or you're in administration and you want to bring financial literacy to your campus, holla at me. Let's make it happen. I mean, let's think about it. We are trying to prepare our youth for the real life. And part of that real life is getting a job. Part of that getting a job means you're going to make money. And making money, you have to make a living and live that living. So there's mortgages and rents and, this crazy thing called taxes. And we do a poor job of preparing our students for the real world when it comes to their finances. So colleges, I know on the high school level, it takes a lot of people to make decisions and boards and all that other fun stuff. But at the college level, colleges, you can decide to do this. You are your own entities on your own. You can decide, hey, if you decide you want to offer basket weaving, you can. You can also decide to offer financial literacy. Stepping off soapbox now. So Dr. Busch, don't let me gaslight this issue at all, but correct me if I'm wrong. We do have a bit of or I've read about this, that we have a bit of maybe an epidemic when it comes to our youth, especially in those that are transitioning from high school to college. And from what I've heard, the COVID pandemic just exacerbated that and made it so much worse with the isolation and the lack of access to individuals like yourself. And I've also been told that the suicide rate has increased dramatically over the last few years. I'm just reading these things on, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, or I'm reading it. I also read the Wall Street Journal a lot, so it's possible I saw an article there. So am I right in making this blanket assumption?
You're absolutely right. And college campuses are really struggling to meet that demand. College campuses are doing a lot of innovative things, incorporating a lot of virtual care, contracting with companies to expand what they can offer on campus because the demand is just so high. And so for a lot of students, they may have been anywhere from late middle school to early high school during the pandemic, a time where they were at home, they were isolated, they weren't with their peers. And a lot of students were depressed during that time. Now, there's an exception for students who have anxiety and social anxiety. They actually did very well during the pandemic.
Because, it's like, I don't want anybody to bother me anyways. I am introvert. Yeah,
exactly.
I will cover my face up too. Don't even want you to see me. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, but for students who are more social, they really struggle during that time. And so now they're in college, and maybe they had some academic setbacks when they were in high school or middle school that's impacted where they've gotten into college or how prepared they are for college. And then there's also just the socialization piece where they're sort of trying to catch up, because it's a really important developmental stage when you are early to late adolescence and figuring out who you are, how you connect with other people, the friends that you make. Some of our students really missed out on that stage, and so they're trying to catch up. So all of that plays a role. We see that 1 in 4 college students endorse having significant mental health symptoms. And it varies, that statistic varies based on the mental health condition, anxiety versus depression, and those kinds of things. But the rates are very high. And I think we're recognizing it a lot more. This generation wants to talk about mental health. They want to get mental health care. So I think that's also contributing to the higher numbers that we're seeing, is that there's just so much more awareness, in addition to, I think maybe there is a higher sort of prevalence.
So are you finding that finances are becoming a greater part of some of the angst that our late adolescents and early adults are dealing with?
Definitely, and it comes in a variety. So a lot of the students that I see are kind of advantaged. But here's where it comes into play. I think that having financial literacy available during college would be so huge. I wish I had it. For the students that I see, they may have some level of privilege, and their parents are trying to figure out, okay, how do I launch them? I kind of have subsidized many things for them. Now they need to start paying for things on their own, but they kind of don't know where to start. So I actually end up sometimes advising parents on that. Okay, let's set an allowance for the month. Let's just not let them have carte blanche to the credit cards.
Yes, parents, let's not let our kids have carte blanche on the credit cards.
Yeah. And so these are some of the things that it ends up happening. I end up working in and negotiating with the parents and students, is how do they become financially responsible? Let's start to have them pay some bills, because maybe they've never had to pay any bills at all. So let's start, maybe they're paying for their gas or their car insurance or that kind of thing. And then I've even worked with some students to set up budgets. You wouldn't think that this is like in my role as a psychiatrist, but it just, I'm doing whatever is needed, and sometimes that's what's needed. So it is important, because the students are also kind of, some of them are freaking out, like, am I going to get a job that pays enough? But then some of them are like, don't even really have a concept that they need to have a job that's going to pay enough. So I really like that point that you made, was like, okay, you need a job, you need to think about how much it's going to make. And some of the students I talk to have no concept of like how much an apartment will cost to rent or the associated utilities. So I'm kind of with a specific set of young people, and just from outside of my practice experience and talking to other young people, students are really trying to make sure they have enough scholarships to make it through, right? And then wanting to pick a job that's going to pay them well, a career that's going to pay them well. We're going to talk about that. People who are applying to professional schools, like the things that they have to keep in mind when they're applying to pay for standardized tests or tutoring and those kinds of things. So money is huge. And if there's a lack of it, it can leave people feeling really stressed and depressed, which doesn't allow them to reach their full academic potential. So that's really how I sort of see money, mental health, and academics interplaying with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I come across it often when I go to the colleges and universities and speak with students. And where I spend a lot of time, as some of you know that are listening, is with the students that are transitioning from undergrad to medical school to residency, and then residency to working in the real world. And you're right. A lot of times, I mean, the average residency is only paying between $45,000 and $70,000 a year. And if you're in one of the coastal New England area, the New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts, or if you're in California, that's not a living wage. for the amount of stress that you have. And some of those individuals in residency have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of student loans, don't know how to navigate the student loan landscape. And so that can be an added stressor. And I come across it often when I talk to those individuals about disability insurance and life insurance, and I have to ask them about their medical history, and they start mentioning some of the psychiatric drugs that they had to take due to their anxiety, due to their depression. And unfortunately, that can affect your ability to get approved for life insurance. It doesn't always kick you out, but it does keep you from the lower rates that are available to those that didn't have it. And a lot of times that stress has come from, as you mentioned, the transition period that they go through. And I've even dealt with it with students that are considered to be more well off from a more affluent household, but it's that responsibility. They never got the training of the financial literacy, the weight of that responsibility that they have to take on these things now. Or maybe their parents helped them through undergrad, but now they need to borrow for medical school. And they're like, wait, I need $140,000. Yes, that's you chose Columbia. That's the cost. You got to write that check. It's got to come from somewhere. So this is why I'm incredibly appreciative of the work that you're doing. And I love, you sent me an email not too long ago that you want to help teach other psychiatrists how to do this as well. And I think it's similar to what I'm doing with other financial advisors. I'm like, look, we got to get into the colleges and teach people financial literacy. The college isn't doing it. We have to do it. It has to be one of those public-private relationships. I want to shift gears a little bit because your husband, sports fanatic, a big fan of, I believe it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe they call themselves, that lost to the Dallas Mavericks. I know he's going to hear this, so I wanted to say that just for him.
Brother.
And then I believe he went and burned all of his Timberwolves gear and went and bought Mavericks gear. So welcome to the bandwagon. Talk to you. So he and I exchanged a conversation about an article that was written 15 years ago. And it was in Sports Illustrated, got a lot of press. It was about why do athletes go broke? And the article was why do athletes still go broke? And he speaks a lot about the psychology of being an athlete, how you're always viewed as the best of the best, and you have to be the best of the best. I mean, that's how you get to the professional level. And because of that, they're less likely to raise their hand and ask for help. And so when they go from making no money to making a lot of money, going from borrowing money from their parents or friends, whatever, just to eat every week, to all of a sudden getting paychecks of 30, 40, 50 or hundreds of thousands of dollars a week. Meanwhile, they're surrounded by all of these other athletes that, have been in the league longer, making more money. This keep up with the Joneses thing starts to happen to them. And if they don't have good leadership when it comes to the finances, the statistic 15 years ago was 78% of professional athletes are either bankrupt or in extreme poverty, if you will, or has extreme money issues within 2 years after leaving the league. And the reason I bring this up for you, and this is a conversation I want to have with you, is that we had this new law that passed to pay our college athletes.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that's just going to make the problem worse.
You think so?
No, they still don't have the financial literacy training.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So he was talking about in the article how in the NFL they've also had a and I talked about this at the top of the podcast before I brought you on, how the vanishing middle class, how the rich are getting richer and the poor. I mean, they're not necessarily getting poorer; it's just their money's not going as far as it used to. And that's happening inside the NFL. The most elite, the quarterbacks, are getting the highest paid. And then you have, very few people in the middle with the, a good contract, but everyone else on basically call it some sort of minimum wage for the NFL. And they've had this vanishing of the middle class. Well, you're just now injecting billions upon billions of dollars into these college athletes. You're going to create the same thing. You're going to have the athletes that are able to get the $1 million Coca-Cola, Sprite, Nike, whatever deal. And then you have the other people that are just getting the $1,500 stipend from their booster club. So you're going to have the students that are able to pull up your Rolls Royce on campus. And then you're going to have the one that maybe, I landed I'm just picking Papa John's, whatever. I got a Papa John's deal and
Yeah.
I get a $50,000 check. They're going to blow that $50,000 in a
Right.
weekend.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important to think about with this population is sort of brain development, right? So the frontal lobe is not fully developed until the age of 25. So you're talking about having to have really good executive function to make good decisions about this money, and it's just not all the way possible for these young people, right? So yes, I think that you're right. There probably is the potential for them to really not save their money, waste it, not use it in wise ways. And I think it's partly biological, right? Because they may not have the wherewithal up here to do that, which is such a shame. I mean, I wish there was some sort of mandatory uh, education for athletes. I mean, for all college students, but for athletes in particular about how to manage their money going forward. I couldn't see any harm in that. But I even heard these stories from my business banker, right? She said she used to work with the Cowboys or something, and she said it would happen all the time that the young players would come. They'd want to buy these like huge, crazy, extravagant houses, and then a few years they couldn't afford them anymore when they weren't making as much money. So anyway, and this might be controversial too, just sort of going back to brain development, also thinking about what happens to the brain after it's been concussed or hit many times. I'm not,
Mm.
I
It doesn't help.
wonder, it doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
And one might question, does that impact decision making along the way as well? So, as a scientist, as a physician, I have to think about that too. So, and that's maybe not as relevant for basketball, but certainly for football.
Oh no, you can fall on your head in basketball too. There's no helmet. You come down from 6-7 feet up in the air and hit the floor. Yeah, no, they can go on concussion protocol there as well. I think, and Dr. Busch, why I bring this up to you and because we're in this similar space, I think that with the name and likeness deals that are out there, especially some of these bigger schools that have the funds, that have the capacity, I think they need to invest in individuals like yourself.
Great idea.
Individuals like myself.
I was going to say like yourself. Yes.
Yeah. No, both of us to bring them to have them as a resource. Because that's the thing. Once they get into the league, some of those resources are there. They have the Players Association, they have the unions, et cetera, to provide them with that additional coaching and help if they raise their hand and ask for it in most cases. But when we think about the college level, I mean, if we just think about, Baylor right down the road, does Baylor have the infrastructure to help educate their students that are starting to get paid for this sport that they were going to do for free anyways? Okay?
Yeah.
Because some of them think they're going to make it to that next level, which is only a small percentage of them will.
Yeah.
But now they get their hands on a little bit of money. It also, I think it from again, I'm not the doctor you are, but I think it can really affect their connection between their sport, that they, their passion, what they do, what they're able to do. And then if they are now getting some money for it, but then they don't make it to the league, they still had these 4 or 5 years of education, and now they have to go out and get a job. Does the reward match the work the way that it did while I was in college? I think it's going to set. I think it's funny because when NIL was in its infancy, I was a person who was like, yeah, these college students should get paid all this money that NCAA, all these organizations are making on their backs. They should get paid. And my brain didn't even say, well, wait a minute. Maybe we need to work on how we educate them from a financial standpoint before we just throw money at the problem. I think it's going to create more bad habits. I think they're going to end up with it, because think about it. The average NFL career is 2.5 years. Average NBA career, I think, is 4.5 or 5.
Well, I didn't know that.
Y'all can fix that for me later if my numbers are off a little bit. But the point I'm making is it's about the same length that they're in college.
Wow. That's so short.
So if you give them this money, I don't care if it's 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $100,000 over this 4-year period with a underdeveloped frontal lobe, it just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
For financial disaster it is.
That's a good point. I think another thing to think about is you talked about how will this money change or impact their relationship to the sport. another thing that I think is important is to think about how it will impact their relationship with those around them.
Yes.
And if I were to have one of these athletes in therapy with me, some of the things that I would be exploring with them would be, what do they feel like they need to spend their money on? Who do they feel like they need to spend their money on? And why is that the case? And I think that, you know, a lot of people do end up giving away a lot of their money to family members or friends and that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But from a psychological sense, sometimes family members or friends can make people feel guilty or give them sort of a sense of indebtedness to them that's
Oh,
not
yeah. I
justified,
was there
right?
for you when you had nothing. I drove you to and from practice. I watched
Right.
your jock strap,
Right. And
etc.
if I, and
You
if
owe me.
I, yeah. And so if I had that person in therapy, we'd really be talking about, possibilities for manipulation and what do we really owe people? How can we be kind to them? How can we take care of them while we still take care of ourselves? Right. And so I think that's another component. I know that most really, you talk about Baylor, really sort of elite teams or athletic programs have their own mental health teams. They often have separate mental health teams from the general campus, their own therapists, sports psychologists, even psychiatrists. I don't know that they're talking about these things with the athletes necessarily, but I think it would be good topics of conversation for the sake of their long-term financial health.
Well, let's make sure we help more universities have the conversation. So, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Busch, tell us, what is next on your agenda? What do you have?
So much. Yeah, so much. So you mentioned me helping others. So I've started 2 programs, like Elevate Psych Rise, to advise other psychiatrists, ones who are just starting their practice, because I've found great freedom and financial success in having my own practice. And so helping people get started can seem really daunting to get started in your own practice, your own business. And so I'll be drawing from my experience and then participation in Goldman Sachs Black in Business program to advise others, and then support. I am a therapist, a psychiatrist, so Elevate is designed for psychiatrists. Solo private practice can be lonely. So this is really designed to be a community for people, for psychiatrists, in particular women psychiatrists, to get together, have some company, work through the problems, the kinks, and we'll also have guest speakers, notably your lovely wife, to talk to us about money mindset, because that has been huge. Just an aside, one of the things that I'm passionate about in all the teaching that I do and advising that I do is really thinking about how you think money, because coming from an academic setting where you don't have to say, okay, I've served you, now I need my money, right? We have a whole admin team who collects the fees and works with the insurance. It's a big transition to then do that. Say, okay, my fee is this. If you're out of network, if you're dealing with insurance companies, you still will have some of that. But it takes a lot to be able to say what those fees are confidently and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's Psych Rise and Psych Elevate. And then we will be working with another thing that I'm really passionate about is test anxiety. And so we have a one-on-one program. I've helped a lot of physicians, medical students really overcome test anxiety, because the exams, they are always ongoing. And so we have a one-on-one program working on a book, an ebook, and then we'll also have a self-guided program that people can access. So that's coming up in the next couple of months. And what else? We always have our coping kit, which is fantastic for students, a gift for students as they're going to school in the fall. Over 10 mental health focused items. It's not just your candy, junk food kind of, care package. This one really has purpose. And if you do have a student who could use some mental health supports, it's fantastic. So you can find it on the website or on Etsy.
We will put links in our show notes, as we always do. And I want to say thank you, Dr. Busch, for spending some time on the Money Script podcast. We covered a lot today. This is going to be an episode I'm going to have to listen to a couple of times because I got goosebumps several times with a lot of the points that you were making, especially when you reminded me of that frontal lobe development. So Seth, I'm talking to you. You're not 25 yet. For those who don't know, Seth is my 22-year-old son. who's still working on the frontal lobe development. However, he did make it through college during COVID.
Yes. Yes, he did. Congratulations, Seth.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
We are very proud of you. Check out his video. He's been doing some short form videos. So
okay.
I'll put a link to one of his videos. He's
yeah.
that, and he's being consistent. And I am proud of you, Seth. So Dr. Busch, again, thank you so much for spending some time on the Money Script podcast. I want everyone to remember that you are not alone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are resources out there. Sometimes we have to have the courage to raise our own hand, but sometimes we also have to have the courage to raise the hand of someone else. You know, if you know someone that is struggling and needs some help, know that, especially if they're a college student, we'll have all Dr. Busch's information in our show notes, but look into those resources so that you can let people know that they are not alone and they can get some assistance to get through some of these tough times. And huge shout out to our, to the youngins, as I like to call them these days, the youngins that are taking mental health more seriously. I wish that I did when I was your age. So I'm glad that you are. Know that there are lots of other resources out there for you, and we want to be able to point you in that right direction. So until next time, remember to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend. Oh, one last thing I almost forgot. Thank you, listeners. I just happened to log into Apple the other day on the podcast, and it was 5 stars all over the place. Thank y'all.
Yes.
I was like, oh, what the, y'all like the show. There was one of you, I don't know who you are, that just gave us 1 star. I want you to know that we're still at 4.9. Your 1 star ain't hurting me. It's fine. I mean, you didn't have to give it 1 star. You just stop listening and listen to something else. But I guess that's just what you had to do today. Didn't even leave a comment, just 1 star. You know what? Anyways, I got a star for you. So with that, we will see you next time on the Money Script podcast. Everybody take care.
I'm back. Wasn't that a great show? I hope you learned something. I know I did. Now, before you go trying anything you heard today, remember, it is not intended to be specific tax or legal advice. If you need that, go see a CPA or an attorney. If you would like any complimentary consultation with a knowledgeable advisor, visit moneyscript.com and schedule a 15-minute consultation. Want Johans to come speak at your next event? Go to the Money Script website for that too. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Money Script Wealth Management is a registered financial advisory service in multiple states. Want to learn more? Get the full disclosure on our website, moneyscript.com.